This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Thanks once again for joining us. Today's show focuses on, is the Tesla Semi canceled? We also take a look at our trade blast for today, and we look forward to any and all comments, particularly productive ones. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Thanks again for joining us. If you enjoy the show, please take time to like and subscribe. Want to thank our Patreon supporters. You guys really make a difference in our viability and prosperity. So, joining us for our B-roll, as you can see, is Elon Musk introducing the Semi, and this was 3 years ago. As we know, the Semi was actually due to be in production by the end of the 2019 sometime. It's been announced that mid-2020 is when the vehicle will start production in a limited run and then head into larger production as we enter 2021. So we decided to take this show on today because it's part of our beat to cover the Semi. Made a big difference in terms of the way we entered as a show successfully 3 years ago. And we continue to do research on it to determine kind of where we are and what the future looks like for it. So the question we posed today was, is it canceled? And the reason is that, as you've heard, if you listen closely, you hear nothing from Tesla when it comes to the Semi and its introduction. So we wanted to review sort of several interesting aspects of the truck that were quite obvious but worth noting. The first item is that notice the fact that there's a whole bunch of hype related to the Cybertruck and the number of orders and so forth that's going on. Elon has a habit of initially sort of demonstrating to the marketplace that it's viable, i.e., they said how many vehicles were ordered and they only did it for $100 relative to the Cybertruck, because I don't think they were sure of the volume of orders and they had to make sure that they did something. Now that we're established and it's demonstrated that there's a market for the product, he's really pulled back information on that vehicle, as in when it's going to come out, how many have been ordered. All these other details have not been shared. So for us, it's a sign of how successful the product is, will be, etc. So in line with that, the Semi has an interesting position right now, which is that Tesla's not offering any running footage of it like it did with the Cybertruck and other vehicles. We have the animated cartoon that you've seen before where they show the truck in a platooning situation, but for all intents and purposes, unless it's photo of the vehicle being towed, for example, the last image of the vehicle was coming back from Arctic trials in Canada, and there were really no official photos, just semi-official, because you could see the vehicle obviously loaded up on the back of a truck. It actually it's been doing cold trials in California for the last 3 or 4 years up in the mountains above, the Reno factory. And so it was good that they were there and doing that research. The problem they were having is that in Lake Tahoe, the temperatures get, in the winter, it's basically from 20 degrees to maybe 5 below zero, maybe 10 if you're at the highest peaks, but it's not as rigorous an examination of the vehicle as if you send it up into the frozen real estate in Canada, which is where it went over the last couple of months. It was up there for at least 2 weeks. That location is kind of big because there was an effort by BYD to send its electric vehicle to Canada in preparation for working with a company called Loblaws, a large grocery store in Canada. And after they tried it out for a few months at the coldest points, they realized that there just wasn't enough range, and so they actually shut down the BYD experiment with Loblaws And they also canceled the construction of an assembly facility for BYD trucks in Canada because it was clear that the relationship between range and battery that was going on for BYD was inadequate to handle that environment. Interesting to note that Tesla went into the same environment and was able to, we think, successfully manage it because they've been running that environment in California. I've been to Canada and Lake Louise in particular, and 20 below is pretty common there, more like 20 below to 50 below is the range on the colder side of the months there when the truck was in that space. And so it was our impression that, Loblaw remains a buyer on the buyer list for the semi. So the cold was no big deal it is a big deal for all electric vehicles, but announcements that came behind the BYD of cancellation of orders did not occur. And I think this illustrates the point that, yes, Loblaws is staying on the list to get their Tesla semis. They're not getting off now. And the testing that's gone on has been solid thus far. The next thing we wanted to review is the fact that we're estimating that Tesla has at least 5,000 orders for the semi currently. The interesting note about this is that most of those orders obviously are with big companies that would use this in their distribution or delivery facilities. And because within a month of your ordering, it's required that you pay the entire $200K plus for those vehicles, it's our sense that if you do 5,000 times 200,000-ish per vehicle, that's $1 billion. So the semi, Elon and Tesla has spent somewhere in the $100 to $300 million range in developing the vehicle. And so the incremental spending that it's taking to prepare it for production is nothing like what they had to spend to get it to where it is now. And so it's our sense that that $1 billion that's sitting on Tesla's balance sheet is actually helping with R&D efforts, certainly, but it's also helping to stave off cash needs/demands for the company. So basically, we kind of have a situation, we could call it bank day semi. The next item that pops up is just the fact that there have been a lot of conversations going on as to where is the semi and why it isn't here. And there's another data point that comes up, which is the fact that Walmart actually sued Tesla when they had fires showing up on the roofs of certain buildings that had Tesla solar panels on them. So what this tells us then is that if Walmart, which is one of the largest numeric ordering companies for the new semi, is not happy, they have the quality of lawyers with which to bring Tesla to court to address the issue. And so they have not chosen to do that, and we know why. And the answer to that is that on a regular basis, there are engineers from each of the major buyers that have actually articulated or been able to do ride-alongs and collect data that's being distributed to all of the early order folks. And all of that data is secret, so they can't reveal it, otherwise it might affect their ability to get access to the vehicle in quantity and when that might occur. So we're kind of bringing this up because yes, we all want to know what's going on with the semi, but there's a Silicon Valley process where they call it a need-to-know basis. So NDAs or non-disclosure agreements are fairly common in Silicon Valley. And so what you're finding is that there's, in essence, a process whereby all the people that are potential buyers for Tesla have no problem getting data on performance, et cetera, and delivery times. But if you're not one of those people that's part of the delivery supply chain, you're not getting any information. And for those who give up the information, they potentially jeopardize what's going on and possibly even deposits and position in line for getting vehicles as they start producing. So there's a very clear incentive to keep it in the top secret realm. And it's very clear that Tesla recognizes how powerful a change agent this will be, and the fact that they want to protect every bit of information possible about the vehicle relative to competitors sort of leveraging that information for whatever reasons. So, um, you know, so in general, we question whether or not the vehicle had been canceled based on the fact that it's not here yet, and there isn't a large amount of discussion about it. The issues we see with it is, number one, it's a clear winner. Number two, everybody that's a potential buyer is getting ride-alongs and visits from the vehicle and test drives with technical information following all of those visits that you saw previously. And so basically, yes, we're waiting on production to start, where it's going to be, how many they're going to produce, et cetera. But there seems to be, it'd be really nice for us to get more info on this because it's such an important vehicle. But it definitely is logical for them to be chintzy. And in light of their cash needs, especially after COVID, I wouldn't be surprised if the fact that they're having to produce less right now is actually beneficial, because they can retain that capital to work on other priorities and not have to expend it in the process of producing large amounts of semis. So as we get new information, we will share, and we look forward to, sort of staying on top of everything about semi and, what we can expect from it. The one other quick piece of data that we're anticipating is that cattle, which is the Chinese manufacturer of batteries, is scheduled to start fairly large-scale production of batteries in China starting in end of June, beginning of July. So it's our thought that all the battery supplies that had been going anywhere near China for vehicles, in vehicles, or being shipped from Reno will stop being the case. And I think that this actually lends itself to there being enough battery inventory to help make the semi a reality. So again, we'll keep you posted and update. The second part of our show today is our trade blast for Monday, the 27th of April 2020. As you've probably seen, Tesla stock price is up, I guess, $15 in pre-market. It's up about $40 in the last, let's say, 3 hours of trading, closed out at 7.25. As we know, we're heading into earnings this week. Very expensive options based on how wild the delta is going to be, and usually is around earnings for Tesla. So we're looking forward to seeing how this plays out. As for our Patreon supporters, we actually have kind of a 5-minute Mr. Krell show regarding trading. And I was impressed because we have a trade group that we have working, and most of the folks in our group have done very well. What I found interesting is that one of the conversations I had with one of our members last week was to trade your personality. What that means is that there's something called value investing. So if you own Tesla stock and you own it for the long term, you're actually doing trading, but you're doing it at the very safe, stock end. There's trading all the way to the day trade it for a few minutes end. And so that's a fairly wide range of the type of trading you're doing. And what's beautiful about options/stock is you can actually find the personality you have as a trader and make that the reality. So yesterday, I just had a conversation with one of our Patreon supporters, and he actually has call options on Tesla into next year. So he's done well because he bought them when the stock was down in the 250s, and the stock has now risen, obviously. But in his case, his trading personality is you can use time as a way to hedge ups and downs of the stock in the short term. and you just stay calm and wait for your 6 months and get your 2, 3, 400% return. I think that was a brilliant move on his part, and it really is an illustration of the fact that he could own the stock in that time frame, but he's getting double or triple the return on investment by being in options, but doing it in a way it's as though you're trading a stock because there's so much time value there. So I think that that's what's beautiful about trading. That's what's beautiful about options slash even the stock, is that you can trade your personality. As we've talked about a lot, one of our viewers in the Patreon group was talking about the fact that I'm not so much interested in what's happening with trading options, and I agree with you on that. What's interesting about Tesla, though, is that because the stock price moves so dramatically, particularly around earnings, you're sort of in an options trading situation, even if you own the stock, and it's almost unexpected, if you will. So therefore, it can behoove you as we head into the earnings for this week to put some puts in there. If you have a large position in calls, having a put position to protect your downside for a stock that can move 100 or 200 points in a day is not a bad move to protect the gains that you've already experienced on your stock. The final item that I wanted to bring up today is we do have a few slots available for our SpaceX shares still. So if you have an interest in being a part of our Starlink / SpaceX stock purchases, we do have a few slots available for that left. Drop us a note at admin@teslafaninsight.com, and we can help you in that regard. That address is actually below if you'd like to be a part of our group. I think Starlink is pretty awesome, and obviously SpaceX is doing well also as they prepare for the astronauts heading up to do some work at the space station. I actually thought it was kind of fun to see there was a Russian individual who was saying that Tesla's prices are way too low and therefore are an ugly representation of the company in the U.S. And I was like, wow, that's rare to see competitors make comments of that ilk. So at any rate, I want to thank you for taking time out to join us. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Don't forget your leg lifts, 25 leg lifts. I got my stuff out of the car and do this myself. Strengthens your quad muscles. Don't forget the 5-2 or some other diet might be helpful in your mental health as you age. Some weightlifting 2 or 3 times a week can help with bone density. We also want to encourage you to do a 30 or better SPF. You're going to be outdoors in the sun. We look forward to covering Tesla as we head into the amazing buck wild zone of earnings for the company. And I do think that the up for the stock today is reflective of the fact that Elon has called employees back on the 29th to start the process of production sort of restart, so they're ready to go on the 4th. And so I think that's the news driver for the stock's move today. Anyway, again, thank you for joining us. Tschüss. German au revoir, French lihitrot, Hebrew choda hafez, Farsi, hey do, Swedish, Zdravstvuyte, Russian hello, ni hao ma, Chinese hello, and we have a few other languages to learn. There's hope. In Jamaica, we say enough respect, walk good man. Thanks for joining us and have a great day. Bye for now.